Hello everybody, my name is Jake Ronza, Customer Success Manager and Pype Product Specialist with Autodesk. And today we're going to be reviewing the Pype AutoSpecs platform. What AutoSpecs will do is analyze project spec books and extract submittals across different submittal groups, allowing project teams to review and refine draft submittal logs, as well as monitoring changes between different versions of spec books. Once those submittals have been extracted and reviewed, they can then be exported to a project management system. Some of the feature spotlights include building miniature logs for trades, extracting closeout requirements, and Pype Smart Search and Pype Artificial Intelligence tools that will be reviewed during today's demonstration. Let's go ahead and have a look at the platform. I have it pulled open here right in my browser. You'll see when I get to the main login screen, I have my credentials already preloaded in here. But we also give the ability to sign in with existing BIM 360 credentials if available. Once logged into the platform, you're going to see all of the projects that you have created or uploaded specs for within your console. Right now I have a project here in front of me. If I had multiple, they would appear as different tiles on my screen. This project tile, my Rest and Executive Suites project, currently has an IFC version uploaded with submittals generated. You'll also see that I have a 60% CD version of the specifications available as well. Know that you can have multiple versions existing within a project in AutoSpecs to do that version comparison and seeing how your specifications have evolved. Now, there is some criteria when it comes to uploading specs successfully within AutoSpecs, and the biggest one is going to be within that CSI master format your specs must comply with. So that CSI master format, that is the big requirement here of having a, part 1 general, part 2, part 3 execution, part 2 product. So that type of structure AutoSpecs is looking for when analyzing your spec book. Now, what we always recommend is if you have specifications and they're in PDF format, go ahead and run it through the software. Go ahead and see what that type of yield is. And outside of just the basic project details that you see here on the Projects tab, all of my navigation exists here on the left side. A great way for you to get a nice high-level view of the requirements that were extracted for any spec book that's been uploaded will be your dashboard. And let me just search for my project one more time once I'm able to spell executive correctly. And when I select the project and the version that you're looking for, we have a bunch of projects in this environment. Let's go ahead and hop in my IFC version and we'll take a look at all the requirements as how they were pulled. So we have our action informational submittals here broken out on the left-hand side. Closeout submittals that as I had referred to earlier, right next to it. And each submittal group is broken out into their corresponding types, right? So the total number of lead requirements for this project, 171 as detected per the specifications across all spec sections. Same goes for closeout. Breaking out all as-builts, attic stock, your test and inspections, O&M manuals, all of those closeout relevant submittals that would typically be called out for in project specifications. AutoSpecs does the work for you of identifying where those are. And then later on in the platform, we'll discuss how you can actually view them on the specs themselves and further improve your overall submittal analysis. Now, outside of your typical action informational and closeout related submittals, we mentioned how AutoSpecs also gathers all requirements. So those additional requirements can include Division 1, QC, QA, mockups, your test and inspections, all very essential and at least good to have properly recorded as well as referenceable within a platform like AutoSpecs. And then last but not least, we have a breakdown of all requirements by division and by spec section. Clicking here is going to show you each spec section properly named and identified and in order, with the submittals, mockups, closeout requirements, and test inspections all accounted for and broken out by number through each spec section. Clicking on a spec section is going to show you a preview of what those submittal requirements are like, or what those additional requirements are like. And each item is appropriately given the subsection heading as per the specs, the paragraph code, or basically the paragraph of where that item is being called out from, the type of submittal, as well as the submittal description, the meat of what you're going to need when putting together your final submittal register, and perhaps individual trade partner mini logs, as we mentioned before. Now, moving right along here in the navigation, you'll see that I have a smart register to work with. This is going to be where all those submittal requirements are listed in my typical spreadsheet view. So I know a lot of us are probably used to working in Excel and trying to configure that, submittal log based off of perhaps flipping through a spec book by hand, trying to pull them up in Bluebeam and then extracting via Bluebeam. I've heard of all types of different ways, going about a spec book review, or at least getting that initial sort of spec analysis going through, whoever that may be on the project team fulfilling that responsibility. But a tool like AutoSpecs will do a lot of the legwork for you. And as you can see down here, if I were to remove my filter, I was looking at just my closeout submittals earlier, but I have, over 1,900 items that were picked up from this spec book after running through AutoSpecs. And I have a nice set of filters to be able to manipulate exactly what it is I want to drill down and see. I can do that by division, by spec section, submittal types, and the submittal groups. And those are the groups that we reviewed when looking at the dashboard, right? If I just wanted to see all of my mockups, then I could certainly just apply that filter and see all mockups across my entire spec book. And you can imagine why mockups would be a good requirement to want to identify when going through, and really reading through your spec book. Take for instance, we have a window mockup. With that window comes window flashing. You want to make sure that you have that right flashing, or at least the right materials for that as stipulated within the spec book. So if you're using the right materials, then you'll have the right flashing and you won't have any leaks. But if you were to mock up that window and you weren't following the right flashing, and you were to create hundreds of those for a condo job, and a leak did occur, well, you can imagine how those faulty windows would be a huge pain at the end, and just how expensive, brutally expensive that could be with just, going about a mock-up the wrong way. So as, simplistic as it seems with identifying what these requirements are in the specs, you could see just how critical and important it is with making sure these are properly accounted for. And AutoSpecs makes it look simple by yielding all of the correct mockups per this spec book. So that was just an example here with applying a filter. You can do that obviously, across those the different criteria. You also have some of your basic register type table tools, so you can choose to create custom columns if you'd like to further kind of customize your log. We have the ability to add submittals if you were to need it, to add line items, perhaps a one-off requirement that was not stipulated within the spec book that you uploaded, but perhaps came in as an addendum that you hadn't uploaded. Don't worry, we'll get into that in a second. That's very easy to do. And then the ability to delete, create copies, multiple copies, some actions like bulk updating some requirements or checking the history of what has been occurring within this project, over the last 3 months. You'll see that we had a user come in here and export submittals to Autodesk Build. So just a good way to keep track of what's going on within your submittal register, and really makes it a team collaborative type platform as well when working in AutoSpecs. We have a few other modules that we'd like to review here. The third being product data. So we have a separate register specific to product data. Now, product data, think of it as your part 2 materials information. This is information that typically would not be identified as a true submittal or be included as part of a submittal log, but is also relevant and necessary to keep track of and nice to have on hand. And that's what a product data register does. It's all of your Part 2 information that you can choose to then add to your submittals register if you so choose. So if you want to get fairly granular with a particular set of materials, or perhaps you do have a product data submittal that had been identified in the Smart Register because it appeared as in your Part 1 general of your spec book or your spec section, well, you can continue to add to that, compound it with the additional materials information from your product register. The same type of filters are available here with the ability to add. Moving to our third module before we discuss versioning and adding addenda is now going to be spec view. And this is really where the wow factor of AutoSpecs is, right? We see the visualization of our specs in front of us, all of our spec sections properly broken out and accounted for here on our left that you can then collapse and see all the individual spec sections, clicking of which will then move you to that spec section. You'll see how it updates and re-renders here in the center with the PDF preview. And on the right, we have the associated submittals that were identified for the spec section. So for structural steel, I'll be able to click my shop drawing submittal that was identified in my Part 1. You'll see that these specs are in a CSI format. And then with that, I have my shop drawings and all relevant submittal description accounted for here in my action informational submittals. And as I scroll down, you see all of my different submittal groups that we also went through when looking at the dashboard. Field quality control, my quality assurance requirements, and if I scroll down further, we even have some tests and inspections. This spec section was a really good example to choose to kind of show how all those submittal groups are kind of accounted for. So this is the same thing we would normally see in Smart Register, just in a different view. It's more dynamic. You have your specs in front of you, and you'll actually see the highlighted submittal here on the PDF preview. So any changes I make, if I want to merge specifications, you'll see that I have the ability to merge. Or if I wanted to make copies of submittals rather, or merge submittals, or copy submittals, you'd be able to do that from your Smart view. It will then also update the Smart Register. So any changes will follow you regardless of what interface you're choosing to work from. We have the ability to search in specs up here. I mentioned a dynamic search. We have some custom searches that you can choose from. If I wanted to go perhaps tolerances and search these specifications for keyword tolerances, you'd see that I'd have by spec section all of the occurrences or variations of tolerances matching up. And clicking into that search result will actually show you the PDF yield and preview on the right. You could toggle exact match on and off. And this is a great way really for you to perform an audit, right, of the effectiveness of what AutoSpecs has done for your specs. You know, if you know for a fact you're looking to identify, a particular requirement, or you're on the lookout for a particular mockup, you'd be able to keyword search that via Smart Search within AutoSpecs and then see if that comparison holds true of, oh yes, this requirement has already been accounted for. It's currently within my Smart Register. So definitely a helpful feature that often goes used, available from within anywhere in the platform up here at the top. One last thing in closing with Smart View is that you also have your relevant product data that we described from your products register available as a separate tab next to submittals. So all of that Part 2 product data, Part 2 materials, if I were to click on an item of that, it will then bring me to the appropriate page. Once this updates, there we go. And you'll see that I now have my Part 2 properly accounted for my products. I could choose to also add these to my register from this view as well. So you can see the common theme here, right? A lot of ways to do the same thing in AutoSpecs. It's really just a matter of preference of, where do you want to be working out of? What are you most comfortable with? If you like working out of your Smart Register because you like, having that spreadsheet type view, well, then knock yourself out. We have a lot of folks that, also utilize both Smart View and Smart Register in tandem, which proves to be really effective. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here, but we did want to make sure that we reviewed the versioning comparison tool within AutoSpecs. If I have two versions of specs within a project, I can then compare those versions to one another. You see I can select from the drop-down of available versions, and I'd be able to do a comparison from one to the other across those submittal groups that we've kind of been referencing all throughout today's presentation. So if I wanted to see all the changes that occurred from this version to my next, I can show the differences of my action informational submittals. I can see everything that has been added since my past version, anything that's been removed, and also anything that had been directly modified. So it shows you where that line item took place, the spec section of where it occurred, and in yellow shows that modification of how it was removed for this particular submittal description, or how that modification took place across that description. You can also export this as a report as well if you'd like to bring this in to a meeting and say, hey, here are all the changes we've had since the revised set of specs came through. Here are some things we want to watch out for from a submittal standpoint. Get that exported. It has a really nice dynamic report for you that you can easily whip up here right from AutoSpecs. Now, Addenda will work in a similar fashion. If you were to have an addendum that was issued for a spec book, you could go to Upload up here in the upper right-hand corner, and then rather than creating a brand new version, you can choose to add an addendum. From there, you'll be prompted to name the addendum, and when uploading it, you'll be asked to either append or replace any submittals within that particular spec section, or even spec sections that had changed from the first iteration to now the revised or the addenda that had been issued. So you can either choose to keep both, you can choose to completely overwrite it altogether. It is nice to also have a historical view of which submittals come from which versions. One way to be able to see exactly the source version of submittals would be to then check the source version column. It will tell you exactly which version you're working with, including any addenda that you upload. So it continues to keep you really organized and all your submittals properly accounted for and identified correctly. So let's go ahead and wrap this up with getting your submittals now exported to your project management system of choice, or even to a general CSV or Excel log. When I go up to export, you can see that we have a lot of different integration partners here. Now, the integration will be direct for both Autodesk Build, Autodesk BIM 360, and Procore. The other partners here will essentially export to a template that matches that project management system's import requirements. So we have, like a viewpoint template, for instance, pre-uploaded here so that the submittals as exported from AutoSpecs are in a format that then can be uploaded to viewpoint or any other equivalent here for whatever happens to be used as your project management system. If I were to choose Autodesk Build, you'll see that with it being a direct integration, so we're never having to leave the platform to get these or exported successfully into the build side, you'll see that I can choose to export submittals to the submittals module, to files module, or to an Excel. Exporting to the submittals module will prompt me to sign in. From there, it's just going to ask me to authorize the application. I then can choose my partner company, and then any Autodesk Build projects I would have as part of my company would then appear here as part of the dropdown. I believe the Golden Gate company that I'm a part of, I should have a project available, which I do. From there, it's just going to bring me to my submittal types, making sure that these are all appropriately mapped. And after saying that that looks good, it'll then bring me to the first step of the export process over to Build. And there's an equivalent for this with Procore, taking the same type of screens and showing you the same type of submittal preview prior to getting everything exported successfully into that platform, and all through a direct integration. So with the Build integration, you'll see that I can choose to filter and select whatever submittals that I'd like to have brought over to my project on the Build side. Mockups has been a popular example during today's session, so I'll choose mockups. From there, I'll go ahead and click verify because I have all 28 mockups that I'd like to get exported. It'll ask me, or basically ask me to verify that I'll have those 28 submittals exported, and from there, I'll be able to see what my preview looks like over in Autodesk Build. So while this is generating, this is just one example of a direct integration partner, Procore being another, as well as Trimble Project Site. You are able to see a preview here of what these submittals will look like, and then it'll get pushed over to the relevant module that you'll then need them accessible from. At the end of the day, AutoSpecs is intended to read CSI written spec books and give any project team, regardless of project management system, a reliable final output for your submittals. We also want to give you the ability to track what those submittals are and how they have changed or been modified over the course of versioning for spec books. And really, last but not least, we want to give all project team members a nice space to be able to work and collaborate when it comes to the submittals process, either by exporting different logs as needed, or even just visualizing the specifications in a different way, rather than having to flip through it manually. And that about concludes our session today, reviewing Pype AutoSpecs. We hope that this helped give you an understanding of what the platform can accomplish, and also to highlight a lot of the benefits of what AutoSpecs can do for your projects that have specifications that need to be analyzed. So thanks everybody for your time. We will have time for Q&A as well, so don't be shy with your questions. We'll be online to help answer those. Thanks again, and everybody have a great day.
Hi all, thank you for attending today. We will be launching a poll question, and then during the poll question, you all will be able to ask some questions, and our speaker will be able to answer them for you. Thank you.
All right, I can go ahead and take the question in regards to the Procore integration, and if you're able to compare versions of specs directly from Procore with AutoSpecs. So there's not really a direct integration with the specifications module within Procore from Pype. Pype is going to integrate directly with the submittals module on the Procore side. I believe Procore only allows also one working version of specs to be uploaded into that module at a given time. So any new versions of specifications would need to be uploaded into the Pype platform first to then have submittals that you are comparing to each version exported appropriately to your Procore project.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is AJ. I'm Jake's colleague here on the Pype team, helping kind of monitor your questions that you're sending in. We did get one privately. Is this something that can be used by estimators too? And the short answer is yes, absolutely can. So the way that AutoSpecs is used by our customers, whether project by project or across the company, we don't, there's no limit to the number of users that can dial in or log into a single project. And so that's kind of the first component of that. The second is that most of our customers end up taking this kind of company-wide to not only standardize the way that submittal logs are generated for operations, but then also to be able to capture some of those, cost drivers, maybe things that might have a schedule impact in estimating things like delegated design, mockups that Jake mentioned, test inspections, and then also kind of capture a lot of that product information found in kind of that part 2 section of your specs. And so if anything, for instance, has a sole source designation in it, you'll be able to go through and capture that information for your bids. So happy to answer any other questions though, if that didn't get to the root of it.
Another question that's coming through is related to Pype Smart Plans. I'm not too certain of whether we're going to have a follow-up session in regards to smart plans like this one for AutoSpecs, but there is, some cohesiveness between the two platforms, even though they are separate. AutoSpecs intended for project specifications, smart plans intended for specs and submittals on drawings. Both outputs will be exported separately. There, however, is the existing direct integration to be able to export submittals from both platforms to the same project if you have a PM platform that does integrate. If it is going to be an Excel output, it would be a matter of comparing what that output is between AutoSpecs and smart plans. So it will be more of a bit of a manual process, seeing what gaps it filled based off of specs versus drawings.
Okay, and then I can handle the next question here. It's how is the software priced? So that question was just submitted here. There's two different ways that folks can purchase the software. The first and the most scaled way is just a company-wide subscription, and that's one flat fee per year for unlimited access to users and then projects. And that's really based on the annual project volume that folks are running. And so that is based on the applicable construction revenue, right? So that volume. The other way, if folks just wanted to use it on a one-off project, it's actually a flat fee, not contingent on project size. It's just $3,500 for 12-month access. Pretty standard fee there. But then, like I said, it does scale down, at least on a per project basis as folks use it company-wide. So happy to answer any and all questions and follow up here. If you have like specific kind of pricing questions about the subscription fee, we're happy to provide that.
And for those that are still online, a really good question that came through was, is Pype going to be fully integrated into Build? And the answer is yes. It is on the roadmap. That is what we're working towards, a fully baked in experience of AutoSpecs and adjacent platforms to AutoSpecs, fully accessible within the Build platform. That is just going to take some time. It already has been ongoing. We're not having any firm sort of timetable yet that we're announcing, but we are working towards that. So we are happy to have that conversation further for those that may already be using Build. Something to keep in mind if you've just now gotten some exposure to what Pype has to offer with the Pype product line, that will eventually be baked into the Build platform. So definitely something to look forward to and think about if you find that this has some relevancy to your current project workflows. And I believe that should be all the questions we have for today. Thank you everybody for joining. For any follow-up questions or requests for information, we'll be sure to contact you later on following this webinar. But definitely stay tuned for any future Pype webinars that we might have coming up. And everybody have a great rest of the day. Thank you much for your attendance.